So what do these new documents really tell us? Our next guest is the author of Known and Unknown, a memoir, Donald Rumsfeld, former Secretary of Defense under President George W. Bush. Secretary Rumsfeld, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Allison.
Let's talk about what Catherine Herridge just reported. There are whistleblowers who have come forward to say that the Libyan security forces themselves were scared and wanted to quit in the weeks leading up to the September 11th attack, and that those inside the consulate had requested added security, but those requests somehow were not fulfilled. What do you make of all this?
Well, I heard the same report you heard, and as we know, in a U.S. embassy or consulate overseas, theoretically, the first responsibility is for the local government of the country to provide security for the consulate or the embassy. The second responsibility, of course, and the principal responsibility really, is with the Department of State. And what they do normally is they gather intelligence and determine some level of threat that may or may not exist in a given situation. And then it's the responsibility of the Department of State to see that the embassy has appropriate security forces that would meet that level of threat.
So what went wrong here, do you think?
Well, it's too early to tell, really. I'm delighted that the Congress is taking a look at it, and that there are people who are whistleblowers who are talking about what they know and what might have happened. And I think we just have to let the investigation run. But from what the report sounded like, it sounded like there were people who were bureaucratic and unwilling to respond promptly to a threat report and to concerns that were being expressed by the people in Libya. And if that's the case, if that proves to be the case, obviously the responsibility for that behavior will fall on them.
But Secretary Rumsfeld, now that we know that there were requests for more security and people were expressing their concerns and their fear, does it make it all the more confusing and questionable why this was first labeled as just a spontaneous reaction to an online video as opposed to a terrorist attack?
Well, it certainly does. I mean, the idea of sending the United Nations ambassador for the United States out to market and peddle and spin a story that has, within a matter of hours, demonstrated to be not accurate, I think is inexcusable. I can't imagine. But we saw that that's what happened, and I think it's probably because people hoped that the situation there was caused by something other than the reaction of the people to the United States. I mean, we've seen it now in country after country where American flags are burned and pictures of the president are burned, and the Al-Qaeda flag black banner goes up, and there are attacks on our embassies, and various security fences are breached. It is happening. It isn't the Arab Spring. It is something that's much broader. It's across the Islamic world, and it reflects a serious problem. And I think that the president characterizing it, if I'm correct, as bumps in the road, I think is inappropriate. I also think the idea that he decided to go off to Las Vegas to a fundraiser when the news of this broke was surprising.
Secretary Rumsfeld, we want to follow up with you. We want to talk to you a little bit longer. If you can stick around for just 2 minutes, we want to carry you over and talk to you on the other side of this break.
Fine.
Thanks so much. More America Live in 2 minutes. We're back now with former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld. He's the author of Known and Unknown, a memoir. And we are, of course, talking about security concerns in Libya that were expressed ahead of the terror attack that killed 4 Americans on 9/11. Mr. Secretary, you mentioned President Obama's trip to Las Vegas on September 12th. Chief White House advisor David Plouffe defended that decision this weekend, and he said that basically President Obama is the president 24/7. He can multitask. What do you think of that? If you were Secretary of Defense today, what would you be advising the president to do about this Benghazi situation?
I think that the Benghazi situation is a part of a pattern that we're seeing in the not just the Arab world, but the Islamic world. And it seems to me that the people in the White House, including the president, have a responsibility to the country to focus on what is apparently a very serious and broad, deep problem. It is not something that can be attributed to a video no one's seen. Everyone knew that that day was September 11th, and that date posed particular dangers for Americans. And it seems to me that a president has a responsibility to focus. Now, it's true. A president takes along advisors and communications capabilities. But it seems to me if you have a group of people killed, that the president has a responsibility to be on the scene in the White House focusing on it, and anyone in Las Vegas at the fundraiser would certainly have understood if a president decided that his attention was required elsewhere.
And Secretary Rumsfeld, now that we know that it was a terrorist attack, what should the U.S.'s response be to this?
Well, it's going to be a function of what intelligence we have and what kind of information the FBI is able to glean from the site. But of course, now it's been days since the attack, and there's no question but that the information they're going to gain from going to the site is going to be minimal given the number of days that have passed. But it seems to me that what it really requires is certainly getting better intelligence, providing better security for our people, but it also requires the president understanding the nature of the problem we face in the world. And we face a serious problem. There are people who don't believe in the nation state. There are people who are training people to go out and kill innocent men, women, and children. And we have to recognize that that is the enemy, be willing to talk about it and face it.
Former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, thanks so much for joining us with your expertise today.
Thank you.